Tonight, I want to welcome TM Logan. So Tim, who best-selling author, who was a national newspaper journalist before turning to novel writing full-time. His thrillers have sold more than 1 million copies in the UK and have been translated for publication in 19 other countries around the world. So his latest novel is Trust Me, which has just been released in the UK. And Tim lives in Nottinghamshire with his wife and 2 children and writes in a cabin at the bottom of his garden. That sounds very intriguing. And I have to say, the first time I read one of Tim's novels was The Holiday, and I actually listened to it on audio probably about a month ago and really, really loved it. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. A really great thriller. And thanks for joining us. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself or your latest book?
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me, Jackie, and I'm really pleased to be with you this morning. I'm in Nottingham, UK. I write psychological thrillers. Trust Me which is this book, is actually my 5th book, just published in the UK, and it's my first hardback, which is quite a sort of big moment for me, have the first hardback book out. So our first book came out in 2017, which was called Lies, and that was followed by 29 Seconds, and then The Holiday, which you just mentioned just then, and The Catch, which came out last year. And I was actually talking about The Holiday. I was actually on a Zoom call on Friday morning, which was a cast read through for the TV adaptation of The Holiday.
Oh,
so
really?
that's going to be filmed. They're filming it in Malta.
Okay.
So the book's actually set in the south of France, but they're going to be filming it in Malta. And I think the filming's starting end of this week. So I was a little bit jealous of all the cast members flying out there to do the shoot over there. But I think the script is reading really good, really well, and it'll be really interesting to see it kind of on a small screen.
So is that going to be a movie or a series?
It's 4-part TV series.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the sort of first one I've had. There's been some interest in some of the other books for film and TV, but that's the first one that sort of got to this point of actually being made.
Yeah, that must be very exciting, and then to actually go and watch it and see.
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe that lockdown might allow right at the end of the shoot in May at some point. If I can travel out there, I don't know whether that'll be possible or not. But at the moment, it's obviously really difficult with lockdown, and I think we're not in as good a place as you are in Australia, and in the UK we've still got lots of restrictions. So.
Yeah. And Trust Me is your latest novel. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Trust Me is a thriller, and it starts on a train. 2 strangers meet on a train, 2 women, and the main character is called Ellen, and she is sitting there. She's on her own. A young mum sits down opposite her with a baby, a small baby, and the young mum's quite sort of flustered, and her phone keeps ringing, and she's sort of looks like she's kind of really stressed, and Ellen says, let me give you a hand for a second, I'll hold the baby while you take your phone call and get yourself sorted out. So they do that, and the young mum goes off down the carriage to take this call, which she says is urgent, and then the next thing Ellen knows, the train's pulled into a station, and this young mum is walking away down the platform. So that's kind of the beginning of the story, and then Ellen's literally left there holding the baby and not knowing, who she is, who she belongs to, and she has to sort of think, what's the right thing, what's the correct thing to do in this situation? Do I raise the alarm now, or do I wait until we get into into London? And and then the various other things happen which sort of intervene in the story, and she starts to realise slowly that this baby is kind of being searched for by various different people, and some of them have got really bad intentions towards the baby, for reasons which kind of become apparent as you go through the story. So yeah, It's only been out about 10 days, so it's still kind of early days, but it's had some nice feedback so far.
And that sounds like it could make a good movie as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Do you want to maybe read us a little bit about from the book?
Yeah, can do.
That would be great. Thanks.
So I've got, this is a sort of second half. My chapters tend to be quite short. So this is the second half of chapter 1. So Ellen has just had a baby handed to her, and she's not a mother herself, so she's kind of trying to figure out how she goes along. And the baby's called Mia, and the other mum is called Catherine. So here we go. Mia reaches out, the tips of her fingers brushing my cheek with the lightest of touches, tiny points of warmth on my skin. She makes a happy gurgle of delight as I lean closer, allowing her fingers to touch my chin, my jawline. I reach her with my right hand and Mia's fingers wrap around my index finger, a tiny clamp, as gentle as a feather. She has the smallest, most exquisite fingernails. I blow a raspberry onto her fingertips and she giggles. Nice to meet you, Mia. I smile down at her. My name is Ellen. Catherine's phone starts to ring again, vibrating against the plastic tabletop. The screen displays a man's face, 30-ish, dark ginger hair, stubble, a kink in the bridge of his nose as though at some point it's been broken. The name below the image is Dominic. Sounds like he's keen to get hold of you, I say. I'd better answer. She glances again at the phone's display. Would you be alright with Mia just while I take this call? It's urgent. Sure, I say. Go ahead. We'll be fine for a minute. I'll just be down there. She gestures over her shoulder down the carriage. I'll be back. I look up again and I swear I see tears glistening in her eyes. Catherine, are you sure you're alright? Yeah, she says, getting up out of her seat. Thank you. I won't be long. She reaches out and touches her fingertips gently to the crown of the baby's head, as if reluctant to leave her even for a moment. Then she takes her phone down the aisle, towards the end of the carriage, the mobile clamped against her ear. Mia gazes up at me and yawns, blue eyes blinking shut for a moment. I rock her gently from side to side, a wonderful weight in the crook of my arm, the unfamiliar smile returning to my lips. My heart fills my chest, a powerful rush like the strongest drug, a tide of emotion I haven't felt in so long that I've wondered whether it still even exists inside me. I allow myself to imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like if this little one was mine. If I was returning home from the hospital with a baby in my arms, instead of a prognosis even bleaker than the last time. To finally use the little box bedroom for what it had been intended for, saved for, a nursery, instead of a quiet, empty corner of the house left in stasis like a shrine to a life unfulfilled, to something there would never be. I've imagined this for so long, dreamed of it, of night feeds and cuddles and tiny fingers, walks in the park and first words and bedtime stories. All the little things that parents take for granted. I lean closer to Mia's forehead, breathing in that indefinable, soft, sweet baby scent of pure, clean skin and talcum powder and new life, wondering if Catherine knows how lucky she is. There's a shift in the train's momentum, its speed easing as it comes into the next station, the last stop before Marylebone. Open countryside has been replaced by busy little villages and roads, church steeples and barn conversions, commuter land on the way into northwest London. I look up to see if Catherine's on her way back, but she's still hidden from my view at the end of the carriage. How long has she been gone now? 2 minutes? 3? The next stop slides into view. Sear Green and Jordan's, a little 2-platform country station with a footbridge and a small wood-panelled waiting room. A handful of people waiting to board. Catherine has not reappeared. The train wheezes to a stop in a shudder of brakes. 3 long beeps as the carriage doors slide open and a few passengers step down to the platform. I raise myself carefully out of my seat and look around, checking the other way down the carriage, in case Catherine has somehow slipped past while I've been busy with Mia. But I can only see the football fans, all in identical red and white striped shirts, close cropped hair and long legs sticking out into the aisle. The seats across from me are occupied by a small, red-faced man in a pinstripe suit, who has managed to spread out his briefcase, laptop, newspaper and raincoat across 5 of the 6 seats, as well as the little table. He has not looked over at me once. "Excuse me," I say to him. "I don't suppose you saw the woman sitting here. Did she come past us just now?" The man glances up, gives a single irritated shake of his head, and goes back to his laptop. I'm about to stand up to walk down the carriage in search of her, when movement outside catches my eye. A figure hurrying past right by the window. A blonde woman in a rust-coloured jacket. Catherine is walking away down the platform.
Thanks.
That's the end of chapter 1. And the story kind of develops from there, and she goes with the baby into Marylebone, which is one of the London main stations, and looks for a police officer, and then, as I say, various things happen to sort of intervene in her trying to do the right thing.
No, thanks for reading that. That's great, and I'm really looking forward to reading that one. We've got a few people watching, and Kelly says she really loves your writing style. It really transports you into the location and the characters' lives. And Anne said that your book sounds really interesting, and her imagination is starting to wander from your reading. So yeah, thanks for that. Could you tell us a little bit about how you get your ideas for your books?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a sort of file on my computer here, which is just all of the little things that occur to me. It's normally things while I'm doing something else, like doing a job, or in the house, like washing up, or on a walk or something. So I'll make a note on my phone or in my notebook, and then I will put them back on the computer here. So I've just got this big long list of ideas, but they tend to be really small things, which I just kind of developed. So with Trust Me, I was at an ice hockey match, and there was a baby a few rows in front of us with a young family. The baby was staring at everybody and grinning and smiling and really, really, she was really, really kind of, just a really smiley baby. And I just thought, I wonder what it would be like if, could I remember what to do with the baby that small? Because my kids are older, they're sort of teenagers. My daughter's 21, my son's 18. So I was just thinking, I wonder if I could remember all the stuff you're supposed to remember and think about and carry with you, when you've got a baby that small, and then what would happen if mum disappeared or the mum wasn't there anymore, and it was your responsibility to do all those things. And then I thought, well, that might be quite interesting for a story. And would it be, what about if it was if you're on a train and you couldn't get off, or all these kind of things. So then it just sort of, the idea, that was the first bit of the idea, and then I just kind of built on it from there, and incorporated a few other things that I'm interested in terms of crime and detection of crime and that sort of thing. So yeah, but they tend to be sort of really small things like that. And with The Holiday, which again you mentioned just earlier, the start of that was 4 friends going away together, and my wife has done that with 3 of her friends for, I don't know, 10 years or more. Every summer they'll go for a long weekend somewhere, just the 4 of them. And yeah, so I thought, I took that and thought, well, how might that apply if I was going to write a thriller about it. So yeah, the ideas we try to do, they start small, and then they just kind of let them. I get the up here, and I kind of just let them percolate for a bit, and see what happens.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. And are you like you said, you keep a file of your ideas. Are you someone who has lots and lots of ideas for many, many more future books, or do you just try and concentrate on what you're doing? And
yeah, I mean, there's lots of things in there. I sort of know looking at it that some of them probably won't. Well, I mean, maybe lots of them wouldn't make a full length novel. Because obviously, a novel, you're talking about between 85 and 100,000 words. Mine tend to be sort of towards the 100,000 sort of level. But I know that some of them probably might make short stories, and some of them might make I would probably incorporate into a story as kind of an angle or a section. So yeah, there's a big mixture really. Some won't make anything at all. Some I think is just a bit quirky or interesting, like a news story I've seen about something. But some of them will be bits of stories or chapters, and some will probably end up being the basis of a full length novel. But it's difficult to. I don't really know until I've spent a little bit of time trying to think about how the story might work to sort of distinguish, which are the really good ones and which are the kind of the probably the short stories or the chapters.
Yeah. And Belinda says, are all your books standalone, or have you got any series?
Yeah, they're all standalones so far. So there's the 5. They all kind of work independently from each other. I mean, I would like to write a series, but haven't quite got around to it yet. One of my favourite authors is Harlan Coben, and so you look at him, and he's kind of got his Myron Bolitar series, and he's got the standalones, and he somehow manages to sort of do them both and do them really well. So I would like to write a series at some point in the future, but not yet. In theory, it'd be good if I could write 2 books a year, but at the moment, I'm not quick enough to do that yet.
So are you writing 1 book a year at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm writing my next book at the moment, which will come out next year, and I've got June the 1st deadline for the first draft, so I'm about halfway through, and the next couple of months I'll really be sort of cracking on with that, and getting to a point where I can submit to my editor. But yeah, then there's sort of a gap, and then she'll come back with, there'll be sort of probably 2 or 3 edits, and that sort of goes through the summer and into the autumn, because it's kind of a bit of a wait while I could wait for it to come back, and then I work on it and then I send it back, and so there's some back and forth, and then hopefully that'll be kind of wrapped up by mid autumn. It depends how whether she likes the first draft or not, because if she doesn't like it at all, then it's going to be kind of full sort of rewrite, which might take us right to the end of the year. But ideally get it wrapped up by the autumn, and then start to get my head into the next book, and maybe start writing that in December or January.
And are you able to tell us anything at all about the one you're writing at the moment?
Yeah, it's got a sort of working title is The Alibi, although my working titles don't tend to be used in the end for various reasons. They're not always that good, but it's about a family and parents basically, who give an alibi to their son who they think has done something terrible, and he's been involved in something with a bunch of other teenagers, a bunch of other 16-year-olds. So sort of the strap line kind of in my head is that 5 of these teenagers go up to the woods one Saturday night, and only 4 of them come out, and all of those 4 have kind of are potentially implicated in this terrible thing which has happened to the fifth teenager. So the parents of the boy, the family that the story's about, they say he was home by his curfew, he was all fine, he wasn't out at the time when this stuff's supposed to have happened, and they kind of, without really giving it as much thought, they just kind of, they say the things they think are going to protect their son without kind of thinking it through properly, and thinking what this means for him, for them, and for the parents of the child that's missing.
Sounds like another interesting one. Nalima says, when you start working on an idea, do you think of how specifically the book should captivate the readers? I'm always aware of the reader, and I'm always trying to think about the book as if I'm reading it myself. Hence, I always like to keep the chapters reasonably short. So I think about when I would be reading, like on the way to work, or before I go to sleep at night. If I'm reading a book and I'm a bit tired, and I see a chapter's like 30 pages long, I'm just thinking, I'm probably not going to get to the end of that. I might not remember it. So I try to think about things I can do around the structure like that to keep the story moving and keep people interested, and keep the pages turning. So, but yeah, I'm always trying to look at the story as a reader, because I think that's certainly where I sort of started from. And I love thrillers. I love
always loved reading. So I always try to keep the reader in mind when I'm writing.
Thanks. Kelly's wondering, has lockdown helped or hindered your writing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been asked that once before, and it's not been, to be honest, for me, it's kind of been, because obviously I work from home the last few years. I've been lucky enough to be able to work from home. I got made redundant from my day job in 2017, and that was at the point when the book first came out. My first book came out, and I thought, well, I'll see if this works for a bit, and if it doesn't, I'll go back to working, working full time. So because I'm working from home, I'll get up in the morning, come down the garden, like my 14. I've got a 14-step commute. I tell people because that's how many steps it is from my back door to my to the cabin. So I come down here and pull the blinds down, put my headphones on, and just kind of crack on with writing. So the lockdown hasn't really affected that much. The main difference for me was that obviously, my family's here, my wife's here because she's working from home. My kids were back, so my daughter's back from university because obviously they were all sent home from university. My son was getting his school lessons online, so everybody's here. So whereas before, I might come out at lunchtime and I'll be on my own in the house, or just me and the cats. In lockdown, sort of everybody's there, and it's like, oh, hello, you're all here, and it's not affected. It's not affected my sort of working day to day. I mean, it's been good because I've been able to bounce ideas off them, and it's good to have more, company in the house because it is a bit of a solitary profession at the best of times. But so yes, the lockdown has just been it's been different in some ways, but kind of hasn't affected me too much. Trust Me was written during the first, because the lockdown here started in March 2020. So this was mostly written during that first lockdown period last year. I don't know when you started the lockdown.
Ours was March as well.
Yeah.
I think. And could you, like in your bio, it says a little bit about where you write, in a cabin at the bottom of your garden. That sounds very interesting. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Is it quite small or?
It's not too. It's like 5 meters by 3 meters. So it's which is kind of 5 meters is about the sort of width of my garden. So that was kind of as really as big as it could get. But it's just got a desk. It's got my computer. You can see behind me bookshelves which are sort of overflowing, and it's got a kettle, obviously, which is really important, and it's got my guitar, which I haven't actually picked up for quite a while, so I feel a bit guilty every time I look at that. It's got a sofa bed, which I haven't used yet, but I do sort of sometimes sit on that. And so I used to work in the spare room of my house, so the spare bedroom, and it was just getting more and more full of books and stuff and all kind of things I've sort of accumulated over the years. And when my job was made redundant, I thought maybe now is the time to have a sort of a dedicated writing space. And I've had the cabin since end of 2018. So coming up for 3 years, and it's just a sort of like I said, I can come down here, I'll shut the doors, I can pull the blind down, and kind of isolate myself a little bit from the day to day and from anything going on in the house. And I've got a little thing that the doorbell is kind of, I've got this thing where I've plugged it in here so I can hear the front doorbell. So when the doorbell goes, I have to kind of like throw everything off and run down the garden and run through the house to try and get to the door before the person goes away. But it's a nice kind of it's a nice place to work, and like I say, it's got lots of space for books, which is my wife was kind of getting a bit frustrated with how many books were knocking around the house, and now I can just keep them down here, and she doesn't know necessarily how many I've got. So.
And so it was purpose built.
Yeah, it's purpose built by companies. There's actually a local company in Nottingham that do loads of these things, and I imagine they probably have been building a lot in the last year as well for people who are working from home more and realizing they don't have to go into the office or can't go into the office because of lockdown. So it's it's good, and it's got a heater and stuff for the winter, and
Nice.
sort of got everything I need. So
Yeah, nice. Belinda's wondering, are all your books set in the UK?
I have one that's been set in outside the UK, so it's set in the south of France. That was The Holiday, and all the others have been set. Yeah, so two in where are we? Two in London, one in Nottingham, one in south of France, and one in kind of Buckinghamshire home counties, which is Trust Me. So the only exception is The Holiday, and actually, as I mentioned before, the filming of that is going to be in Malta. So it's kind of like not too far away from the south of France, but you still get that Mediterranean sort of feel to it, I think. But I think Malta, for various reasons, was a better choice for the TV filming. So I actually did write a book before any of those were published, which didn't get picked up by publishers, which was set in Boston in the USA, and that was my kind of first unpublished book. And I think when that got rejected by all these publishers, I thought maybe I should bring it home a little bit and do it somewhere that I know a bit better. And so that's why the next sort of two was set in the UK in quite sort of familiar territory. So I keep thinking I should revisit that first book, that unpublished book. So I spent about 6 years working on it, but at some point I will go back to it and dig the manuscript out and maybe try and get it working.
Yeah. So had you visited Boston? Is that why you decided to write about that?
Yeah, I've been. We got some friends out there, and I've been there a few times. And been to. I worked as a Camp America, a camp counselor when I was younger, and that wasn't in Boston, but it was sort of not too far away from there in upstate New York. So I really liked the USA, and I thought it's a great setting for a book because you've got such a sort of broad canvas. I thought to sort of work with, and but some of the feedback from publishers at the time was, well, has this guy, does he live there, or has he lived there, or how well does he know it, and that kind of was some of the feedback. So I thought, okay, maybe I should, like I say, sort of bring the next one back a bit closer to home, and write a book in the UK. So, and that one then was published. So that was the start of the journey.
A good decision. Yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about your writing journey? Like you've been a newspaper journalist. Is that something that you'd been doing for a long time? And when did you decide that you wanted to write a novel?
Yeah, I was a journalist for about 8 years. So I started off working on my local daily paper here in Nottingham, which is the Evening Post. It's just the Post now, but still going. So I did 5 years on that, and then went to London, worked for 3 years in London on a national daily, and then when we came back, for various reasons, we kind of came back to Nottingham after that, and then I worked at the university here as a press officer. So again, lots of writing involved day to day. But I think I'd always kind of known or had in my head right from school that I thought, well, I want to do something that involves writing, and so journalism seemed like an obvious choice for that, and hence that was my sort of choice of jobs, and then working on in the press office side, on the sort of communication side, and actually ended up doing that for 12 years at the university, and then right up until 2017 when I left there. So, but yeah, I think I always had it in my head that I wanted to be a writer, and then I realised when I sort of hit my mid-30s that if I was going to do that, I'd actually have to write something. So it wasn't just going to happen magically. So so I got to about, I don't know, maybe 35, something like that, 36, and I started to write every day, and tried to be consistent about it, even if it was only like half an hour, 40 minutes a day, just trying to get a story down, and that was the story that became that American set first novel, which, although it didn't get published, it did get me an agent in London, and I learned a lot through the process of editing it. It went through about 4 or 5 really big edits, and kind of as I learned a bit more about the sort of the craft of writing. So it was useful in that respect to have written that first book. But yes, it got me an agent, and then we went through the whole process again, and it was actually April the 1st is always kind of a little bit of a day in my calendar, because that's the day that I got the I found out that I had an offer on the first book. So April the 1st, 2016, so it's almost 5 years ago, and it was kind of one of those emails, and then I was kind of looking at it in my inbox and thinking, I'm not going to open it while I'm at work, and I'm not going to, maybe, and would it, and I thought, well, is it April Fool? And then would they be as cruel as that? And so April the 1st was a pretty special day for me, and that's when the first offer. There was 2 offers, 2 publishers, and I went with a company called Bonnier, which is still my publisher now, and I've been really, really sort of happy with how things have gone with them. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. Nalima's wondering, have you read any Australian thrillers?
Well, the most recent one I've read were a couple of Jane Harper, obviously, who's massive, well, worldwide, isn't she? I read The Dry a few years ago, and then last year I actually audiobook. What was the one? Oh my goodness, I've gone blank now. But it's the one where I think it's her 3rd book.
There's the
Set on that sort of it.
Or
it's not. It's one before that, I think.
Yeah.
But that was very good. I'm going to try and find that out. I actually had it as an audiobook, because I do a lot of audiobooks as well while I was painting the hall stairs and landing. So it always reminds me a little bit of that. Hang on. The Lost Man. Yeah. And other Australian authors, I don't know, I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. I know you've got loads of really good.
Another really good one, Christian White. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's written some really good thrillers as well. Yeah.
I have to look him up.
Kelly's wondering if you have a favourite author, and if you like to read a specific genre. Do you only read thrillers? And I'm also wondering if you've been reading anything lately you'd like to recommend to us.
I suppose favourite authors, I really like people. As I mentioned, Harlan Coben. I really like Michael Connolly. Always been quite a big Stephen King fan. Gillian Flynn, Bernard Cornwell. I do like I read a lot of thrillers, but I do like some of the historical stuff as well. I think Bernard Cornwell's brilliant for that. I've got a long list in my notebook of all the books I kind of want to read. But at the moment, certainly the last couple of years, I've read lots of advanced review copies of other authors' books about to come out. So I get sent, people email me and say, can we send you this free book? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I love books. So I find it hard to turn them down. And some of the ones I've read, I've really liked recently. This is an advanced review copy cover, so I don't think it's probably going to look like that. But it's Mirrorland by Carol Constant. That was really good, and that's a debut book. So that was one I read. I think it's coming out this month, I think, in the UK.
Is that a thriller?
Yeah, that's a thriller. And then this one again, I think it's that's not the final cover, but it's Castaways by Lucy Clark. That was really good. Another thriller. So 2 women, 2 sisters going on a trip. They're actually in the Pacific, and one of them gets on. They're both supposed to get on a plane. One of them gets on, and one of them doesn't. The plane then goes down, and so the one sister's trying to find out what's happened to the other and what's happened to this plane. That's really good.
Sounds good as well.
Another one.
I'm just adding them to my list as you say them.
Laura Dave, again, probably not the final cover, but The Last Thing You Told Me, and that is looking like it's May 2021, isn't it? So that's another really good story about a wife sort of looking for a husband who just kind of vanishes one day, without warning. And I think it's one of those kind of Reese Witherspoon pickups, and there's going to be, I think it's been optioned for film and all those kind of good things. So yeah, some of those are I really like. What else have I read? Missing Pieces by Tim Weaver, that was really good. Yeah, and I lose track. Like I say, I write down the ones I've read and the ones I want to read, and then they all go in the notebook. So they were all really good.
Thanks for those recommendations, and it's always good to see some new ones coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about how you structure are you quite structured with your writing, your day? Do you set aside some time every day, or?
Yeah, and I found that when I stopped working in having a sort of proper day job, the first few weeks or maybe the first few months, I kind of thought this would be brilliant. I've got so much time. It's fantastic. Not just writing in the evening or on the weekends. I've got so much time. I'll be super productive. And then I kind of always find myself sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon having not actually done any useful writing. And I'll be thinking, what's going on? So I sort of discovered I do need a kind of a structure, and I make a structure for myself. And so now what I try to do is get up at the same time as if I'm going to work, get down in the cabin by about 8 o'clock. Like I say, trying to isolate myself a bit, so I put the headphones on, turn off all my notifications on my phone and email so I'm not distracted, work through till lunch, so that's probably 4 or 5 hours of writing, and maybe do a bit of exercise or something, come back, maybe do another hour or so of editing and looking at what I'll be doing the following day, and after that, so late afternoon, then I'll do emails and kind of admin stuff. So yeah, I tend to try and preserve the mornings for the writing, because that's when my brain sort of works the best, and when I seem to be most productive. And yeah, so I kind of have that sort of structure in my day, because like I say, if I don't have that, I tend to just let things drift, and there's nothing, every sort of task is going to expand to fill the time available, sort of thing. So if I don't make myself knuckle down on some work first thing, I tend to sort of procrastinate and do all the kind of other things apart from what I'm supposed to be doing, which is writing the book. So I need some structure in my. I'm quite easily distracted, so I do need a bit of structure and a bit of discipline.
And when you're in between, so when you finish one book before you start on the next one, do you try and have a break and do anything to try and refresh yourself, or?
Yeah, I'll tend to sort of come away from it really for a week or two, and as I say, you're sort of waiting for the comments to come back from my editor anyway. So that can be anything from, it's normally a few weeks. It depends on what else is happening on what other books she's looking at. But yeah, I'll tend to try and have a break, do something different. It might be, like I said, last year I did some decorating in the house. I'm sure there'll be probably some decorating jobs with me doing in June this year, so we'll do that, and just try and get my head out of it, try and sort of refresh and refuel sort of the creative parts of my brain. So yeah, it's I also got some other things I'm doing. So this summer I've got a couple of short stories I'm writing. So there's one for an anthology which will be coming out in October. A few other bits and pieces, but it's good to have sort of a few. I always try to sort of have a few things ticking over in the back of my mind, and because then you find that your new things will come up. So yesterday morning I was sort of woke up, and I always have a notepad by the bed. I woke up and I was kind of lying there thinking, should I get up or not? And then I just started churning thoughts on the current story I'm working on, and a couple of useful things that plot points that I can now work into the current story. So yeah, there was always something always going on in the back of my mind in terms of whether it's the current story or maybe a future story. But sometimes you need to, like you say, take a break to sort of let those things percolate in your head and come through.
And what do you like doing when you're not writing?
I like obviously to read a lot. I'm supposed to be learning to play tennis, but I'm not. Because my family all plays tennis. My wife plays, and my son and daughter both play it. So I'm kind of I'm having lessons, like group lessons, which have obviously been cancelled for the last yeah, but I'm trying to do a bit more of that. And we all watch, as I mentioned earlier, we watch ice hockey together. So we got season tickets for the local team, the Panthers. Go and do that. Again, that's been kind of, in lockdown, it hasn't been happening, but that will start. They've got a short season coming up this in April, and then they'll start again properly in September. So then I watch all the usual stuff, sort of Netflix and Amazon Prime, sort of plan my way through various box sets and Vikings, and just watch Behind Her Eyes on Netflix. I think it was on Netflix.
I haven't watched it, but I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, and The One on Netflix. We kind of we try to find something that everybody can watch. So.
And could you tell us a little bit more about like the holiday when they've bought the option for the movie? And do you sell it to them and then that's the end of it, or have you had any contribution or them come back to you about anything once you've done that, or is it just the end once?
I think it's probably. I mean, the first three books have all been optioned. And so then Holidays is sort of the first one where they've actually kind of got. I think lots of things get optioned, but not many actually end up getting made. I think it's just the nature of the industry. But with the Holiday, they've said. So it's my only experience of it happening. So I don't know whether this is typical or not. But they have sent me scripts so there's 4 episodes. They've sent me all 4 scripts and sort of asked me to comment and stuff. And explain some of some conversations with the scriptwriter, who's a very experienced guy. They sort of asked for my input and then talked to me about the cast. Well, they've told me what the casting is, and as I said, I sat in on this read through on Friday morning. It's been sort of quite collaborative, and I'm sort of aware that I think script writing is probably has some similarities to books, but there's obviously a different discipline. So I'm always making myself, take a little bit of a step back. And I think for me, it's like the book is going to be one thing, the TV show will be, it will be its own kind of animal. They're not going to be, they won't be the same. There'll be lots of things that are similar, but they won't be the same. So I just trust them and trust the process, and hope that it comes out all right. I'm sure it will be. It looks, from what I've seen, it looks really good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But I think but you hear about other people. So there's a book by called The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney, which was really big a couple of years ago, and I read the other day that he has written the scripts for that. So so I think it probably works in different ways for different people, but and maybe in the future it'd be great. For me, I'd like to get more into script writing and learn more about it. But for right now, I think I'll just sort of leave that to the experienced hands to do that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it, and I'm not sure when it'll be on, but maybe end of this year or early next year it'll be on Channel 5.
And it sounds like you were reasonably involved in it, because I've heard from other authors who've said that they've sold it and then that's they never have anything else, no involvement or anything. So that's interesting to hear your involvement.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to see it in Australia as well. Hopefully it will be on Netflix or something like that for us.
Yeah, that would be great if it could be sort of seen more widely. I'm not really sure how these things work, but that would be brilliant if it could be picked up, because Netflix is kind of sort of transformed the TV world. I think if you could compare it sort of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what was out there, and what you could get, and it's kind of just revolutionised it, I think.
Yeah, totally has. Could you tell us what you think makes a good story for you? For you as a reader?
For me, it's it's something that involves you in it, and something that sort of is relatable, and it's got people in it that you can connect with, and situations you can connect with, and I love thrillers that are sort of page turners as well. That you can't put down in your books you're thinking about even when you're not reading them. If you're doing your normal stuff through the day, you're thinking about the book and thinking about when's my next opportunity when I can sit down and read the next few chapters. Those are the kind of books that I've always liked, and I always use that as a bit of a test when I'm trying to think of an idea for a book. If I think, well, I'd quite like to read this myself, then I think, well, I probably quite enjoy writing it as well. So I'm always thinking, you know, what would I like, and what would be sort of relatable situations. So one of my favourites from years and years ago is called A Simple Plan by Scott Smith, which is one of those stories which just starts from a great sort of single line idea, kind of high concept idea, when they, you know, these three guys find a bag of money in the woods and decide not to tell anybody, you know, and it just starts from that, and it's really it just kind of, you might have read it or seen the film. The film's quite good as well, but it's just kind of, the whole thing just kind of spirals from that one situation onwards, and I really love stories that do that and books that do that. So that's kind of, you know, where I like to go.
And do you like a good twist?
I do. I love a good twist, and it's hard to do, and maybe it's getting harder. I don't know, because certainly with people who read a lot, it's quite hard to do. But I do love a good twist, and always trying to sort of not sort of flick ahead and not see what's happening, or not sort of avoid, you know, any spoilers from hearing about, like, so like the, you know, Gone Girl. And I read another book recently by Adele Parks called Both of You, which I think is coming out soon, probably May or June. That's got a really nice twist, sort of about a third of the way through, and you're just kind of like, because you know, then you got the twist at the end, and some of my books have twists at the end, and some of them are kind of like midpoint or 2/3 of the way through, and it's always good to really surprise people, and I always hear from people who read reviews and say, I saw the twist coming like 100 pages before it happened. But some people will, but hopefully lots of people will be surprised when they see that.
Yeah. Kelly said that she's read 2 of your books and she never saw the twist was coming on. That's good to hear. Could you tell us how much research you do for your books?
Yeah, it depends really on what the story is, but there is some research. So some of the stuff in Trust Me, there was some elements of research that I needed to do for that. I mean, I suppose I don't probably do as much as other people, other authors, because I don't want to overload the story with lots and lots of background. I think I try to do enough to make things, to do things properly and write things in the right way. I'll use quite a few books that I find useful, some books on sort of forensics. Val McDermid wrote a really good book on, I think it's just called Forensics, and I'm also lucky enough to have I've got a police contact who's a detective, chief inspector, I think, with Nottinghamshire Police. I've got a friend who's a doctor who I can always ask weird questions about, like drugs and things like that. So, and another friend who's a criminal solicitor. So it's kind of sort of gathering people along the way, really, and asking them questions that are relevant to the book. So yeah, I've got some people I can kind of draw on for that sort of thing, and then I'll use books, also use, for locations and stuff, particularly in the last year. There's, you can also kind of do some work with Google Earth and that sort of thing. So there's obviously huge resources on Google. It's not really a replacement for being there yourself, but so with the holiday, I did the location for that, or not the villa, because the villa is very different to the villa in the book is really luxurious, and the one I stayed in was much more kind of normal. But the location in that, the village and the place and the view, was all from a holiday I've been on in 2012 or 2013. We've been to this place in the south of France. So I drew on that. I used that. So I used my own kind of experience as part of the sort of background for that. So the research for that was kind of looking at the home videos from that holiday and going through the photo albums that we had, and so it's kind of using stuff that I was already a little bit familiar with.
Thanks for that insight. And just reminding people before we finish off, if you've got any more questions, please type them in the comments. While we wait to see if there's any questions, can you tell people watching how they can keep in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can, I've got my website, which is tmlogan.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, so my handle on all those is tmlogan author, all one word. You can find me on there, so I'll be posting sort of updates on what I'm doing on there. I'd love to see sort of, pictures of the books out in the wild, or to hear from people who've read them, or get comments from people. So you can see me, you can reach me through social media, through the website, and I've got a readers club as well on the website, so you can just click on that, subscribe, and you'll get advance, not very often, but maybe about once a month, something like that. You get advance notice of covers, and you get sort of chapter reveals earlier than anybody else, so you get sort of exclusive stuff on there. And then there's sort of some giveaways and what have you. So the Readers Club is kind of growing strong, and that's where sort of direct people if they want to find out a bit more about what I do. And I don't sort of spam with loads and loads of emails, so it's not that frequent, but it's always a little bit something extra for people to receive in advance of sort of wider publication. So
yeah, all right, I'm signing up for that now. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to reading Trust Me, and hopefully seeing The Holiday somewhere on TV.
Yeah, me too.
And hope maybe we can chat to you again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everybody who's been watching as well.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye. Take care.